Redditors, what is the worst case if I don't know how to operate this everyday object you've seen? Story 1. I worked desk-side IT support at a Fortune 10 company. There was a director of some super important division. I think it was involved with the launch of new products. Like all directors there, he had an assistant. Unlike the rest of the director's assistants, she had the biggest printer we supported sitting right next to her, and connected directly to her PC. It wasn't even on the network, so no one could use it but her. Turns out, it's because every day this woman comes in, prints every email the director got single-sided, and puts a huge pile on his desk when it's done. He then goes through every one, of course, immediately trashing 99 of them, and handwrites replies on the back. She then stays late every day to type them up and send them. All because this dude found Outlook too challenging. Story 2. My wife is a middle school teacher, and her principal is technologically illiterate. He updates the same PowerPoint, not the same template, but the same literal PowerPoint file for every single presentation he makes. It's now an illegible mix of fonts, font sizes and formats. His bullet list switched between unordered and ordered, and different types of sub-bullets, so there would be 3 bullet points, followed by a 4 and an E. The worst, though, was when he was giving a presentation about the Me Too movement, talking about how it might potentially impact their students and staff. Thing was, the guy has no idea what a hashtag is, or how to talk about them in a public setting. His entire presentation, he was talking about the Me Too movement. No actual message was communicated that day. Story 3. I was checking into a hotel and asked if I could get access to the conference room to start setting up for the training I would be conducting all week. The lady at the desk was adamant we hadn't booked their conference room for a full week. It had only been booked for today. We went back and forth for a little bit until she got out the schedule book to show me. The schedule book was just a spiral-bound book with calendar pages. She points at today the 31st and says, "See, there's nothing after this." I screamed internally and turned the page to show that reality didn't end at midnight, and our company name was indeed written in every day that week. She didn't give me any trouble after that. Story 4. One of my friends asked me if I would go to the gas station with her and fill up her tire with air because she didn't know how. I gave her the same answer I give most people when they ask me to do something simple that they will need to do again at some point. "I'm happy to go with you. I won't do it for you, but I will show you how to do it." She thanked me and said she asked me because she knew I wouldn't make fun of her and was worried people would think she was stupid because she didn't know how to do it. Story 5. As the youngest in the office, I'm now the official printer guy. Anyone has a problem with the printer, they come to me dumbfounded. Sometimes it's just the machine telling them there's a jam and they refuse to read the display telling them where the issue is. Story 6. My mom and Gmail. Quote, "No, I don't need a password to log in. Now get my emails back." I get older generations are not as tech-savvy, not having grown up with computers and internet. But come on, you've had that stupid computer for at least 10 years. You must have picked up on the basics by now. Story 7. I once saw someone in my office start to climb up the wrong side of a common metal ladder before being stopped. This claim is so ridiculous that, despite its simplicity, it may be misinterpreted. So here's an image to confirm that this is what I mean. Story 8. I dropped an ice cube on the floor once and threw it in the sink. My roommate at the time was flabbergasted. She had never thought of that, and always put dropped ice cubes in the garbage. Story 9. Served in the army for a brief time with a girl who didn't know you had to rinse clothes after you soaped them while manually doing laundry. We had incidents where our laundry services would be woefully behind schedule, so occasionally, you had to do some sink laundry here and there. She would get hers wet, soap it up, and then just hang it and wonder why hers always came out worse than everyone else's. Story 10. As an IT manager at a small office, I'll just say the majority of people when it comes to understanding and operating a Windows computer, the amount of people that get hung up and stop working over the most minor issues is astounding. Want to prove yourself more efficient and put yourself ahead of 90% of the current workforce? Learn basic proficiency in how to operate a Windows 10 PC. Story 11. A housemate of mine once put something in the microwave that was covered in tin foil, not a foil lid, something she had covered in actual foil to reheat. I saw it happen out of the corner of my eye and dived in to open the microwave before anything went wrong. She got very angry and said, "What the are you doing? I'm trying to cook my lunch." "What's your problem?" I said something along the lines of, "Look mate, you can't put tin foil in a microwave." She told me to off and I sat down in the corner of the kitchen to eat my food while she tried to do it again. When the microwave sparked and made a fuss like it was going to catch fire, she started screaming and turned the microwave off at the wall. While I sat there with a smug grin on my face, I wanted to say, "See, told you so," but I felt the smug grin was probably enough. Story 12. My girlfriend never used a toaster until 4 years ago. She inserted 2 slices of toast and started the toaster. When she thought the toast may be finished, she took a metal knife and wanted to get the toast slices out of the toaster by picking it up with a knife. I just noticed a second before she would have put that knife into the electric heating wire and shouted, "What are you doing?" from across the room. Maybe I saved her life. Now she knows toasters stop automatically after the preset time, or you stop it by pushing the respective button rather than killing yourself. Story 13. My sister-in-law had a flatmate who never cleaned up after himself in the toilet. There was always left. My SIL and their other flatmate were annoyed, but didn't want to embarrass him by telling him. When they were moving out and cleaning the apartment, the others told the poop guy to clean the bathroom, and pointed to the toilet brush and told him to make sure to use that too. When they came in a while later to see how it was going, he was using the toilet brush, but not in the toilet, he was using it to clean the walls. This guy was in his late 20s and had no idea what a toilet brush was used for. Story 14. My boss doesn't know how to forward emails. He also doesn't know how the printer scanner works. He will call me over to his office, have me print an email, then he'll tell me to scan what I just printed and send it to the person he wants to send it to. Story 15. I almost stapled my hand or my face with a staple gun if my teacher hadn't intervened in time. I had never seen one in my life and was just handed one to put up some posters. I'm not sure how I held it, but it was wrong enough for the teacher to dive over like a baseball home run. Story 16. Walking on a treadmill. I'm not talking about operating or using the controls, simply walking on it. I work in healthcare and perform stress tests in a hospital. You would not believe how many people, old and young, that don't understand how to walk on a treadmill. Many people try to just march in place before almost being flung off the back. Some people have absolutely no natural survival skills or instincts. Story 17. New hire was asked to mop the back room when I worked at a coffee shop. It's a mop. I thought no one needs to be taught how to use a mop. Well, this dude lifts the mop up, dips just the ends of the mop into the soap water, and proceeded to lightly brush the floor with wet mop tips like he was doing a giant-sized calligraphy project. Story 18. I see examples every time I'm watching people putting carry-ons in the overhead bins on planes. Like whatever part of their brain is responsible for geometry, at even the level of understanding of a toddler, goes completely dark. You can see it in their faces, frustrated and completely baffled why they can't fit their luggage in there, and I just want to scream, "Turn it sideways, you idiot." Edit. And just for fun regarding flights, there was the dude who jammed up the baggage drop trying to persuade the attendants to let his extra 150 kilograms of checked baggage slide for free. Dude had 200 kilograms worth of luggage. I'd never seen anything like it, and for my own stupidity, there was the time I was in the check-in assistance line for about 20 minutes with my head down before looking around at everyone else and thinking, wait now, something's wrong here. I asked someone what flight the line is for, Jamaica. I must have looked pretty dumb ditching the line after being there all that time. Story 19. I had to teach my brother how to drive his car through the car wash. Mind you, I was 17 and had not yet started driving myself. We got to the gas station, and he looked at me and said, "Hey, you go out with Dad all the time. How do I get a car wash?" I stared at him bewildered, then told him to go inside and say he wanted to buy a car wash, which wash, and then to pay and bring out his receipt. He does this, then asks me what he should do next. I told him to drive to the car wash, so he did. He seriously sat there and asked me what to do next. I told him you roll your window down, type in the code on the receipt, and then you drive in. He did exactly that. He drove in, and we started getting hosed. I yelled at him, "And you put the window up, you put the window up." It never occurred to me that I would need to tell someone that you don't leave your windows down in a car wash. Story 20. I think of myself as a smart guy. A couple of months ago I warned my girlfriend against using the car horn too much in case it runs out. Immediately after she asked me what I meant, I realized I've never seen or heard of anyone going to get their horn refilled. Full disclosure, I still don't fully get car horns. Story 21. A guy I know had his in-laws move in with him for a while. They were very traditional, very religious types where the man was the head of the household and the woman did the woman's work, super conservative. My friend told me that his father-in-law came into the garage one day when he was cleaning up and asked what he could do. My friend told him that he was almost done and only had some heavy items to put away, so he told the FIL that he could sweep up and handed him the broom and dustpan. FIL said, "Okay, how do I do that?" Story 22. It was me, operating a self-checkout at Walmart. I scanned a thing, and held it in my right, then proceeded to try to scan the next thing using my left hand. The machine said please place item in bagging area like 15 times. I just stared at it like it was speaking Swahili. The checkout person had to help me. I was completely sober. I just vapor locked. I have no idea WTF happened. Story 23. Grad students are kind of the epitome of specialized knowledge. I used to hang out with a couple of guys who knew more about non-profit organization laws than I knew there was to know, but I frequently had to teach them things like how to make microwave oatmeal, how to make a graph in Excel, and what a thesaurus was. Story 24. I work in a bakery, making specialty cakes. Every now and then someone will order a specific design they found on the internet. Sometimes there are print screen attachments they send by email. Every now and then someone will give me an actual photograph they took of their computer screen. Like, they took the picture, had it developed and brought it in person to the bakery. Story 25. Kind of relevant. It's more a misinterpretation of how an everyday object is operated. Me and my grandma were sitting on a bench. Some guy with AirPods zooms past. Grandma laughs me. "What? Grandma?" In Russian. "Did you see that man? He put his cigarette behind his ear for safekeeping." How silly. We laughed for hours after I explained, to a very disbelieving grandmother, the concept of Bluetooth headphones. Edit. People mentioned this is normal. I didn't know that. Also I reflected on the memory, and I think she might have said that he was trying to put the cig behind his ear but miscalculated and stuffed it into his ear. Memory is a fickle thing. Apologies. Story 26. My old roommate claimed she was the smartest person around. I thought she was smart enough, I guess. But then she bought her first wallet. I turn around to her trying to force the wallet shut with the cards in the wrong way. She insisted the wallet was manufactured incorrectly because the wallet wouldn't close with the card sitting upright. I silently took the wallet, turned one card 90 degrees, handed it back to her, and went back to what I was doing. Story 27 I was standing behind a late teenage early college type at the post office drop-off counter at my local grocery store. They sell stamps and hold on to letters and packages for pickup by the post office once a day. This young Karen in training was sending a thank you card to her grandmother who didn't have email. She was absolutely livid that she had to pay money to put a sticker on the envelope before they would accept it for delivery. Story 28 If you ever want some serious amusement, hand any programmer a device made for non-technical people. Seriously, I am a programmer and work with many more, and it frequently takes 5 or more of us to figure out how to work a projector, a smart TV, or some more complicated office chairs. I am not joking. Story 29 Church camp low these many years ago, last night, cabin cleaning time, girl started crying while holding a broom because she didn't know how to sweep. The maid does this at home. She wasn't being a prima donna, either, she was genuinely lost. Story 30 My nan, back when 50 Shades of Grey was just out, wanted to know how to use her Kindle and download the sexy one. Nope, sorry nan, I have no idea. Story 31 I just got back from a vacation. This isn't the worst thing, but it's on my mind right now. It's how bad people are at getting their luggage off of the luggage thing at the airport. Like, people were literally falling over unable to grab their baggage. It was sad to watch. Story 32 My 21-year-old college roommate asked me how to turn the basic AF oven on to 350 degrees to bake cookies. That same roommate the other day thought the Lysol sink cleaner spray bottle, or whatever brand it was broken, because he didn't know that you had to twist the tip from lock to spray. The year prior my 18-year-old roommate didn't know how to do laundry. Simply throw the Tide Pod in, select the temperature, and press start. Story 33 The only roommate I ever had was a guy who didn't seem to know how to do most basic tasks. He had to Google things like how to empty a vacuum and how to cook rice. I told him to add 2 cups of water to 1 cup of rice and that would be more than enough for one person. After giving me snark attitude, I come home to find he had added the whole package to a full pot of water and the pot basically exploded, rice all over the place. Story 34 My mum with pretty much anything that's electronic she needs 5-6 times explaining before she finally understands, only to forget how it works a couple of days later, and then we can start all over again. Story 35 I worked at the front desk of my dorm while in college. The first week of school a freshman came over with an envelope and asked how to address it. Everything explaining that an address is written on 3 lines, one above the other, to which corner the stamp goes on. It was actually fabulous because he was sending a thank you note to his aunt. It's just that his mom had always done it for him in the past. Story 36 Saw a girl doing hip thrusts on a bench in the gym, asked her what she was doing and she said bench pressing, showed her how to do it properly, was impressed to see she could do 120 for 5 with no issues once she got the form down. I call her hip thrust now. Story 37 Slightly different context. One time I got really high and wanted some milk, so my wife got me some milk, and I just couldn't figure out how to drink it, like I just knew if I tried I would spill it, so I asked her to get me a straw, because I figured that would be way easier, and I was so wrong. The straw was like infinitely more difficult to use. My brain just couldn't wrap itself around drinking. Story 38 I used to work in the Middle East, and you would sometimes see workers that were from rural parts of India who had obviously never seen an escalator before. I always got a chuckle out of seeing them ride it for the first time. Story 39 White girl I know who grew up in China. She got hired in our offices as a personal assistant. The CEO met with the CFO to discuss some big matters and on the way into the meeting asked her to make a pot of coffee. She never had coffee before, let alone made it. The coffee maker was an absolute mystery to her. She made tea though, and took a swipe at it by boiling water and mixing in grounds, then took that into them. Story 40 This happens to me the other day. I spent 5 minutes pulling at a door that was clearly marked push. For some reason it would not register in my brain to push, so like a douche, I just pulled it instead till the security guard helped me out. 33 and still can't open a door. Story 41 Ketchup pump. Worked at a restaurant for a summer in college expediting for the kitchen, getting sides, fixing plating. We had a new guy come a few weeks after me, obviously chock full of nerves. I asked him to fill up 20 ramekins with ketchup for a big order coming up. Literally all you have to do is hold a ramekin under the faucet and push down on the pump. It's exactly like you would see at every single fast food joint that lets you get your own sauces. Despite showing him several times exactly how to fill these cups with ketchup, it still took him 15 minutes and about 30 more questions to get the simple task done. It's not like he was a dumb guy, but I swear the only thing he ended up being good for in the 3 months I worked there was clearing tables and doing dishes. Everything else just left him entirely unsure of himself, to the point where he couldn't do anything. Story 42 Not really something you operate, but I have met a shockingly high number of people who can't tell time on a non-digital clock. Like though meeting one was pretty ridiculous, but Eve lost count by now, pretty sad. Story 43 Not mine, but my good friend is a manager in some student accommodation. He's not actually that much older than the students, so the ridiculous situations he finds them in are even more perplexing. One time he gets a call from a student saying there's smoke filling the shared space and they don't know what to do. So my friend calls the fire brigade and runs up to where their dorm is, comes in the door and sure enough the place is filled with smoke. He looks over and sees 5 students just sitting on a couch in the smoke with their t-shirts held over their mouths. He's like, WTF are yous doing? They hadn't even opened a window, or at very least GTFO. He instantly assessed that they'd left some old greasy tray in the oven. So he opens it up, grabs it and chucks it into the sink. Instead of actually dealing with it, they just sat there in a room rapidly filling with arid smoke. He was in total disbelief. Another one, a guy came up to his office absolutely furious and genuinely upset that someone had stolen his clothes from the washing machine. My mate thought this was dubious, but he went along with it. They get to the laundry room and the guy points at the machine and indignantly says, "Look, see, cue my bud facepalming." The washing machine is still running full speed, and this moron couldn't grasp the concept of clothes being pressed against the drum from the centrifugal force. Story 44. I work in heavy industry. We had a new guy and we were setting up a pump that wouldn't work. I asked him to go grab me a spark plug socket. He paused and asked me, "And what does that look like?" I reply with, "It looks like a regular socket but a bit longer with a rubber insert in the inside to grab the plug." He turns around, walks away, stops. Comes back and asks, "What does a socket look like? Dude, who hired you? Where were you before today? How did you get in here?" Turns out before my company hired him he was a jewelry salesman, and he slightly embellished his resume. Story from a friend. New guy on a service rig. There was a whole bank of grease nipples for something. My friend tells him to grease the whole bank. My friend comes back and the guy has smeared grease across the whole bank of nipples. My friend responds with, "Wait here. I have to go tell everyone how dumb you are, then he'll come back and show you how to do this properly." One of my favorite responses ever. Story 45. Standing behind some 20-year-old guy who had apparently never operated or observed the operation of a self-checkout kiosk. It took him 10 solid minutes to figure out how to get his item scanned and pay for it. Story 46. My care coordinator, aka right-hand person, is 1 year younger than me, but she's about as tech-savvy as my 90-year-old grandma, not implying that all older folks aren't tech-savvy, but my grandma is definitely not. Seems like I'm showing her something new every day, from keyboard shortcuts to how to operate the printer correctly. She's learned a lot since she's been here, but definitely unexpected that she wouldn't understand computers to a basic understanding. She grew up with them but just never messed with them, she said. Story 47. I once had a customer scream at me for a good 5 minutes, accusing me of destroying their car. I had to explain how to wiggle the wheel and turn the key, because they didn't understand how the steering wheel lock works, insisted they don't have one, and then insisted I must have installed it to trick them. It's been standard equipment since the 1960s. Story 48. My wife can't operate anything with mechanical parts such as, but not limited to, lever corkscrew, can opener, push pump soap dispenser, dish soap squeeze bottle. She even struggles to plug the whip thingy in the mixer. Other than that, she has a master's degree and is studying for her PhD. She mastered the retractable pen though. Story 49. Not any one big specific one, but an astonishing amount of people just don't pick up on common design language for certain functionalities. See a cylindrical shape with ridges or knurling around its outer surface. That's probably something designed to be twisted. If it's a separate protrusion from the main body and doesn't have texturing around the outside, there's a good chance it's a button. A seam running around something with a cylinder running along the seam on one side is likely a hinge of some sort, so something on this device opens. A button that's elongated in some way and has extra room on one side is likely a slider, either to control something or undo a latch of some kind. A pair of identical divots on either side of something often means squeeze here. The rules aren't followed 100, but they are followed often enough that if you see a specific design element that follows that rule, it functioning within the rule is a pretty safe bet. When I see elements like that on a product, I immediately have some idea how it works, and that's intended by design. Many people just don't see those patterns in product design for whatever reason. Story 50. A woman approached me at a gas station in Dallas. She had never put gas in a car before. How do I open the little door? How do I know when it's full? What number do I choose? How do I pay? She was in her 40s, and driving a super-up Chevy. My assumption was she'd escaped from a really terrible situation and was starting out on her own. I didn't ask about any of that, but I did spend 20 minutes with her, helping her fill up her car and learn the ins and outs of the gas universe. Got some warm fuzzies that day. I hope she's kicking. Story 51. The older guys at my work don't know how to use the computers. It's funny the way they call me whenever there's a problem like number lock is on, or the monitor was off. Story 52. When I worked in a coffee shop, this lady came storming up to me and started yelling that our takeaway cups were terrible. I asked her what was wrong and she proceeded to tell me that she had put the cup into her handbag and coffee had spilled everywhere. She opened the bag to show me, and there was the cardboard takeaway cup mashed between a hard shell glasses case and a paperback book. Story 53. My wife doesn't like gadgets and refused for the longest time to get anything Bluetooth because it's just something to mess around with. She finally caved and let me buy her a pair of wireless noise-canceling headphones for Christmas, and she raves about them constantly now. Just for context, she's in her mid-30s. Story 54. My MIL died a few years back. She was a stay-at-home wife who did all of the housework and cleaning. About a month or two after she passed, husband gets a call from his dad in his 70s asking how to clean the toilets. I thought it was funny. His dad has multiple graduate degrees and is ordinarily very book-smart. I also had a similar situation in my side of the family. An aunt died who was the stay-at-home wife. Some time goes by, and then my dad gets a phone call from his brother aunt's husband asking how to cook an egg. The next day he called back to ask about cooking another dish. My dad had to go over and provide some rudimentary cooking skills to his brother age 80s and their daughter. Story 55. I'm pretty smart. I know how things work usually, but as soon as someone is watching me do something I get extremely clumsy and forget every single thing that I have ever learned. I turn into that other guy taking the IQ test in Idiocracy. Story 56. My roommate in college and I go grocery shopping. He picks up some taco shells, reads the directions and puts it back down, then picks them back and says, "Man, tacos would be so good tonight, but we have no idea how to brown meat." I told him to get the tacos and I'd teach him how to cook. Story 57. Yemi, trying to use those butterfly can openers. I've tried many times and just can't seem to master it. Despite being shown over and over, I can use the other ones just fine, but Eve yet to not absolutely butcher a can whilst trying to use those butterfly ones. Embarrassing. Story 58. When I was working at a gas station years ago, an old lady called for assistance at the pump. She apologized for needing someone to show her how to work a gas pump. Because her husband had always done it and he had recently passed away, I barely managed to show her how it worked without shedding a tear. Story 59. One of my employees always took my stapler and left hers in its place, always empty. Finally confronted her. She admitted she didn't know how to fill the stapler. She's 30. Story 60. Am not convinced this is a matter of don't know how to operate this thing, but rather have no idea how to follow instructions. My team recently finished developing some proprietary software and distributed it to the 4 dozen people who will be using it. I made a manual for it that starts with step-by-step instructions for using the software. I even typed up the instructions in an email that got blasted to the whole group, in both the email and the manual. Right at the beginning, in big, bold, red letters it says if you encounter an error, save your work, hit the report a bug button, then attach the file you just saved to the report. Total number of bugs reported via the report a bug button, 2. Total number of those reports submitted with the work file attached so my guys can try to duplicate the problem, 0. Total number of bugs reported via someone randomly encountering me or one of my guys in the halls and bitching about how we're not fixing the bugs fast enough for 5 minutes before finally getting around to describing the issue in the most vague and unhelpful way possible, 22. I eventually had to have the owner send out an email explaining that no bugs will be addressed unless they are reported via the report a bug button, with an attached file. Total numbers of bugs reported via random hall encounters since that last email was sent, 3. Total number of bugs reported via the report a bug button since that email was sent, 0. Story 61. Anytime my wife hands me her smartphone, I have no idea what to do with it, and it's kinda embarrassing. I'm not even old. I've had a flip phone my entire life because all I want out of a phone is to be able to make and receive calls. Story 62. When I was a freshman in college, I was in disbelief at how many kids didn't know how to do their own laundry. Parents, you do your kids a disservice if you do everything for them and don't expect them to help out. Story 63. This one kid I know in college grew up doing absolutely nothing for himself except studying, I guess, and he legitimately couldn't figure out how to turn on our dorm stove to boil water. It was incredible to witness. Honestly, I've never met anyone as incapable of being an adult as him. Story 64. I can very clearly remember when I had one of these moments. Back when I was little, I was pretty much a spoiled brat. My parents weren't particularly rich, but my dad is a CFO at the company he still works at, so we were able to afford some things or go to places other might not. One of the many things that lead to me being spoiled AF was the fact that I had to do virtually no housework. My mother later explained that she did all of the housework because she hated doing it herself when she was little, and she didn't want to bother us with it. Furthermore, she wanted us to focus on school and our hobbies, which we hardly ever did, because we were too busy playing video games. Cut back to a 1-week trip in middle school. We were living at one of these forest youth hostels in our neighbor state. The trip itself wasn't all too bad. On the last day, the hostel staff pretty much made us clean up not only our own rooms, but also the bathrooms, kitchen, etc. Meanwhile, me, who had zero idea how cleaning works, mostly moved things from A to B if they needed to be, until the strict teacher called me into the kitchen, as I was the only one around. She handed me a mop and told me to wipe the floor with it. Oh boy, the face she gave me when I told her that I had no clue how that worked has absolutely carved itself into my brain. She actually did take the time to patiently explain it to me, but I honestly felt pretty horrible for the rest of the day. That was pretty much the moment that made me realize just how far away I was from reality, how different and sheltered I was. Perhaps my complete lack of self-awareness is what made me such an easy-to-pick victim in the first place. Thankfully, I managed to learn all the skills needed to live on my own pretty soon after that, be it from my mom, my friends, or even their parents. Story 65. Not exactly operating an object, but I guess it still fits. My best friend, 21 years old, did not know that hard-boiled eggs can just be eaten. A few months ago we were hanging at his place and I grabbed an egg, which his father had boiled the day before, out of a basket in the kitchen. My friend looked me dead in the eye and asked, "What are you going to do with it?" I replied, "I'm just going to eat it, what else?" and started laughing because I thought he was making a joke that went over my head. Little did I know he was dead serious. In his 21 years of life, he has never learned, seen or heard how hard-boiled eggs work. I'm still not quite over it. Story 66. A transit map. I don't get how it's hard to look at the lines and see where they connect to switch. They make them super easy, and yet still you have people look at them dumbfounded all the time. Story 67. Watched a lady struggle trying to go out of the automatic incoming doors at a Kohl's for like 5 minutes. She finally told the cashier the doors weren't working right, and she pointed the lady to the actual exit. Story 68. Most people at using spray nozzles on hoses to wash things off, either not pointing it at the right angle, too wide or narrow of a stream, or starting at the bottom. I've worked at a butcher shop and many industrial bakeries, and it's incredible how many people can't figure out how to clean things. Sure, it's sanitation's job to teach people, but there should be a minimum level of competence. The worst I saw was a guy who hated cleaning out the freezer because he always got soaked. Normal washouts meant you got a little splash here or there, but it wasn't bad. This guy would have been more dry at the bottom of a pool. It wasn't until I helped him one day that I saw the problem. He was cleaning the ceiling directly above him by just spraying directly above his head and thus creating a waterfall onto his face, or he would stand too close or at a bad angle and get it all shot back at him. After showing him how to stand and what are good angles, he was able to clean faster and drier. He still hated it because it was boring but admitted it wasn't so bad doing it my way. The second worst I've seen was a guy trying to wash out a mixing bowl that was a third full, about 500 pounds. Previous shift had a shutdown and didn't remove it, and the shutdown meant that it had sat for 3 hours, which is never good with bread dough. He got out the hose and started trying to wash it out rather than dump the dough out first into a red cart then wash out the remaining bits. But he had the hose on the rinse mist setting and was focusing on the middle. Both times showed me the leads weren't doing their jobs, but also why it was important to do spot checks on off shifts.